Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for standing by. Welcome to the 2017 ACC Coaches Football Media Teleconference. During the presentation, all participants will be in a listen-only mode. Shortly afterwards, we will conduct a question-and-answer session. At that time, if you have a question, press the 1 followed by the 4 on your telephone. If at any time during the conference you need to speak to an operator, press star 0. As a reminder, this conference is being recorded Wednesday, November 8, 2017. I will now turn the conference over to Mike Finn. Please go ahead.
Okay, thank you, and welcome to today's ACC Football Coaches Teleconference. As usual, we'll have transcripts and audio files available later this afternoon on the ACC website, theacc.com. That said, let's go ahead and get started with Coach Brian Kelly of Notre Dame, who's Irish, ranked 3rd by the College Football Playoff Committee, 3rd by AP, 5th in the Amway Coaches Poll, will travel to Miami Gardens, Florida to face Miami. The Hurricanes are ranked 7th in the playoff committee. And the game will be Saturday at Hard Rock Stadium, nationally televised. It'll be 8 p.m. kickoff. And Miami also will host Game Day, ESPN's iconic pregame show, for the first time since September 3rd, 2006. Coach, just a brief opening statement, and then we'll go to questions.
Miami's really good. Was that brief? No, I mean it's a really talented football team. Mark's done a great job of bringing the energy and enthusiasm back into Miami, and certainly very talented on both sides of the ball. A great challenge for our football team as we go on the road now, and playing our 5th ACC opponent. We've been challenged each and every week in the ACC, and each opponent has brought, different challenges. But this one, I think, in terms of being as complete a football team as we'll play. So, great challenge. Excited. Our guys are excited about the atmosphere and looking forward to it.
Questions for Coach Kelly?
Ladies and gentlemen, if you would like to register a question, press the 1 followed by the 4 on your telephone. You'll hear a 3-tone prompt to acknowledge your request. If your question has been answered and you would like to withdraw your registration, press 1-3. Our first question comes from the line of Christopher Heidel with Herb FM Sports Radio. Please go ahead.
Hi, Brian. How you doing?
Good, thanks.
Talk about Miami's offense. Last year you guys played them in South Bend, and they had Brad Kaya and they had Walton, but this year Walton's injured. They have Travis Homer. So are they a different offense this time around than last year?
Yeah, and I think it starts at the quarterback position with Rozier. He's really a gritty, tough quarterback. 19 touchdown passes on the year, but runs the ball very well. Averages 14, 15 yards per completion. Just a lot of big plays. He's just, obviously complements, the offense very, very well. Barrios is a similar kind of player as well, and he didn't play a lot versus us last year. Very crafty, very smart, just a gritty, tough, different kind of offense than last year.
Hey, talk about Adams. What does he have to do this week to get through that Miami defense? Because that defense is very good against the run. Like against Virginia Tech, they completely got havoc all over the field, and Josh Jackson didn't know what he was doing for the whole evening. So what do you guys have to do with the running game to get that thing established?
Well, first of all, Josh has got to play. He only had 5 carries last week. So, getting him into the game, getting him comfortable into the game is going to be really, really important for us. Obviously, we are who we are now in terms of running the football. So our success will be based upon, our ability to get him going. And certainly it's going to be a great challenge against a great defense. But, we've played some really good ones, along the way. North Carolina State was very good against the run. Georgia, obviously, very good against the run. And, again, another challenge for us. But that's who we are. We've got to be able to run the ball and get Adams going.
Well, good luck this weekend and safe travels to Miami.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Our next question comes from the line of Mark Berman with Roanoke Times. Please go ahead.
Good morning. What jumps out at you about that Miami defensive front as you try to run the ball this week? And also, what's kind of your confidence level in how Brandon Wimbush has grown should you need him to win a game with his arm as opposed to, the rushing attack this week?
I like, obviously, the athleticism of the front seven, Thomas, Norton, McIntosh, Jackson, across the front, and then the linebackers, obviously. And the one thing that they do that's unique is that they've got linebackers that can play on all three downs. They don't have to nickel out, and that creates some issues. Quarterman, Pinckney, and McLeod all stay on the field. Veteran safety. So, look, this is a team that is extremely athletic. I think Manny Diaz does a great job of putting these guys in position to take advantage of what they do well, and that is run and tackle. So, clearly that's a challenge. As it relates to Brandon, we were looking at some of the things that he does, and, people migrate immediately to completion percentage. But, he's 60% efficient on third down in all third down situations from 1 to 10 yards. So he's been really efficient on third down. He's 34 out of 35 in scores in the red zone. He's only thrown 2 interceptions. So, he's got a lot of things going for him as he continues to grow at the position, because clearly he's able to throw the football, but more importantly, he makes big plays when they're needed.
Thank you.
Yep.
Our next question comes from the line of Edward Ashoff with ESPN. Please go ahead with your question.
Yeah, Brian, can you just talk about what's impressed you about Malik Rozier this season?
I just think his grit, his sustained effort. He hangs in there. He may throw a pick, and then he immediately puts it behind him and comes back the next play and makes a 45, 50-yard throw down the field. I just, for a first-year starter, nothing seems to bother him. He just keeps playing and, has found a way to win games. I think that stands out to me more than anything else. Look, if you watch him on film, you wouldn't say, well, that's, that's Mayfield or, that's Rosen. But he's a winner, and he's undefeated as a first-year starter, and I think that says a lot about him.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any more questions for Coach Kelly?
Ladies and gentlemen, for a question, press 1-4 on your telephone. We have a follow-up question from Edward Ashoff with ESPN. Please go ahead.
Yeah, Brian, when I talked to Josh a couple of weeks ago, he said that he felt like the offensive line in the backfield kind of had a coming-to-Jesus moment with toughness after that Georgia game. Did you notice that in practices, in games, that they were playing with a little more energy or toughness or something like that?
I think they felt like there was more that they could give, more so than it was, that we're not tough enough, as much as we've got to apply ourselves even greater. And I think they felt like we don't want to hear the noise about being underachievers. And I just think that they went back to practice with more of a focus on we're gonna dominate the line of scrimmage. So I don't think it was physical as much as it was mental, and them approaching each game with that mindset of wanting to dominate their opponents. I don't know that they particularly had the right mindset, and I think that kind of shifted their mindset after the Georgia game.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any more questions for Coach Kelly?
Ladies and gentlemen, for a question, it's 1-4 on your telephone.
Coach, thanks for being with us today. I know this is the last time you'll be on this season, but good luck for the rest of the year. We look forward to seeing you down the road.
Thanks a lot. Thanks for having me on this year.
We now welcome Virginia head coach Bronco Mendenhall, whose Cavaliers will travel to Louisville, Kentucky for a Saturday game against the Louisville Cardinals at Papa John's Cardinal Stadium. The game will have a 3:30 p.m. kickoff, be nationally televised by ESPNU. Virginia, with its win over Georgia Tech last Saturday, became bowl eligible for the first time since 2011. Coach, just a brief opening statement. We'll go to questions.
Yes, we're anxious to continue, again, growing and developing our program. We're thankful for the successes of this past week and look forward to applying whatever learnings we had and versus our next opponent in a significant test versus Louisville. So I'll take questions.
Ladies and gentlemen, for a question, it's 1-4. Our first question comes from the line of Mike Barber with the Richmond Times-Dispatch. Please go ahead.
Morning, Bronco. When we spoke to you on Monday, you said you were undecided on who would be running that scout team quarterback, who would be your Lamar Jackson. Do you have anything you can share there on who you've been using and how that's gone?
Yeah, we've been using Zachariah Burton. He's a defensive back on our team who played quarterback in high school, and he's done a nice job to this point. So much like against Georgia Tech, you kind of scan the roster and see who might be able to help or fill those shoes, and Zachariah has done a really nice job to this point in our preparation.
Second question, sorry, it's unrelated, but how would you evaluate offensive line kind of week to week? Have you seen week to week improvement, or has it still been a little bit up and down and maybe a little bit all over the map?
Week to week improvement prior to Boston College and Pitt, and then a continuation of improvement last week. So with the exception of those two games, I think it's been pretty steady in terms of improvement.
Great, thank you.
Welcome.
Our next question comes from the line of Doug Dowdy with Roanoke Times. Please go ahead with your question.
Bronco, Micah Kaiser said last week that you had a vault full of option film, and I was curious how much, as you prepared for Georgia Tech the last 2 years, how much did it help to have played Air Force all those years?
It helped significantly, and really the impetus or the motive for me collecting option film over the years is as a first-year defensive coordinator at the University of New Mexico, the first time I'd ever defended option, we took a beating, and I'll never forget the feeling on the sideline of that game, and that sparked my introduction and learning into defending option football, and so that's been, I think, for 13 or 14 or 15 years. I don't know how long versus Air Force, but every one of those games has helped. And then Georgia Tech has also helped. But it's been one of my passions to learn and grow and develop, and being able to help our team have a good chance anytime we play an option team.
And that beating that you referred to was against Air Force?
Air Force, yep. It was my first year at the University of New Mexico, and again, I didn't understand the option well, certainly could not make in-game adjustments, didn't even know what to adjust to, and I felt bad for my players that I was in charge of them at that point because I wasn't prepared.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Our next question comes from the line of Brad Franklin with Rivals.com. Please go ahead.
Good morning, Coach. I was just curious if Jack English has returned to practice yet, what his status is at this point.
Jack has not returned to a full practice yet, but we haven't given up for this week or this for practice or for this week for the game. So tomorrow's a new day, and hopefully and maybe that could happen then.
Our next question comes from the line of Dan Tortora with WakeUpCallDT.com. Please go ahead.
Good morning, Coach. How are you?
Morning. Good.
To take a look at some of the adversity that the team has faced recently, just how you've seen the guys respond in the locker room, on the field, and in practice, and just what you can say about moving forward, learning from that adversity.
Yeah, I think we're just becoming seasoned and more mature, and that usually, takes a few scars along the way for those things to happen. Difficult to be seasoned and grow and mature without some setbacks. A friend of mine who used to coach lacrosse here, Dom Starsia, one of his leading principles is men and women of value have scars. And so I think all we're trying to do is create young men of value. And I'd love to say it's possible without setbacks and challenges. And I'm continue to look for ways to do that. But what I've also learned is scars aren't all bad, and they help remind you of lessons that can help you grow and develop. So I think that's what's happening with my team.
What have the scars taught you about this year's team moving forward?
Oh, that they're capable, not always consistent, but capable. And on any given day, on any given field, I think they have a great chance to perform well. And so that's the main takeaway is they are capable, and they're starting to believe that.
Thanks, Coach. I appreciate it.
You bet.
Our next question comes from the line of Doug Dowdy with the Roanoke Times. Please go ahead.
Yeah, I was asking you about Juan Thornhill the other day, but I wanted to ask you about another defensive back, Brenton Nelson, who I guess has enabled you to do some things in the secondary because he's been playing that Sabre position. Mm-hmm. Just talk about he had a big interception the other day. It doesn't look as if he's taken one step backwards since you had him.
Brenton's done a really nice job. Really, all of this story or this question goes back to Tim Harris, and so because Juan Thornhill was playing the Sabre position when Tim got hurt, Juan was the next best corner, but the next best player that wasn't getting significant time was Brenton, and so Brenton's skill set, he's a very, very good tackler, and he has good man coverage skills. And I think Juan Thornhill does as well. So they're not the same body types, but it gives us a very similar player. And when you can put those two out there together, it just increases what we can do defensively.
Our next question comes from the line of Christopher Heidel with the Herb FM Sports Radio. Please go ahead.
Hey, Coach Bronco, how you doing?
Well, you?
Good. Congratulations on being bowl eligible this year. Congratulations. What do you guys have to do this week against Louisville? Because I know DeMar Jackson, you played against him last year. What does he look like this year compared to last year? Is he completely different now? Because I know last year he uses his feet a lot. This year he could beat you with his arm. So is it a bit different?
I think it's just the next version. It's Lamar Jackson 2.0 after more seasoning and more experience, and so he's still capable of running the football for a touchdown on almost any play. He's more intentional of staying in the pocket and delivering the ball downfield. That's the biggest difference. And so he's still just an excellent player and a really, really good athlete.
And what do you guys have? What are the three keys for you guys to do to pull out a win on Saturday?
Yeah, I'm not sure what the keys are for Louisville specifically. Again, we stay pretty consistent with our approach weekly. I like that for our players to always know what to expect, and certainly the focus on points, scoring and preventing, and field position and turnovers are always helpful.
Well, good luck this week.
Thank you.
Coach, this is Mike Finn in Greensboro. Thanks for being with us today. Good luck this weekend, and we'll talk to you next Wednesday.
Okay, Mike. See you later.
We now welcome Clemson head football coach Dabo Swinney, whose Tigers rank fourth by the College Football Playoff, the Associated Press, and the Amway Coaches Poll. Will host Atlantic Division rival Florida State this Saturday at Memorial Stadium in Clemson. The game will have a 3:30 kickoff, be nationally televised by ESPN. Coach, just a brief opening statement, and we'll go to questions.
Okay, thanks, Mike. Proud of our team for how they finished last week in a really, really difficult game against a great team in NC State and a great environment. Especially from our last outing on the road. Good to see us respond a little bit better. So just really proud of our team and the growth that I've seen in them. We're excited about this week. Our seniors are down to the last 2 games here at Death Valley, and it's a special place to play, and I know these guys are excited about the opportunity to compete for the division on Saturday against Florida State, which is pretty much kind of what we knew it would come down to, and then we've got our senior day next week, so it's a special time this time of year, and off to a good start with our practice this week. Got a really huge challenge with Florida State. This is as talented a team as you're going to play. Got great players everywhere. They've had some tough losses, but we don't have any illusions other than the fact that we're going to have to play our best 4 quarters of the season to have a chance to beat these guys.
Questions for Coach Sweeney.
Ladies and gentlemen, for a question, press 1-4. Our question comes from the line of Dan Tortora with wakeupcalldt.com. Please go ahead.
Good morning, Coach. How are you?
I'm good. Good morning.
To look at how your team started 6-0 in this season and then to have that loss to Syracuse and then get back to winning, just what you can say about how you saw your team respond to the adversity and to that loss, what they learned from it, and how they got back on the horse pretty quickly.
Yeah, well, I just think that's just, ultimately what matters more than anything is always how you respond to something. It's never, really what happens. It's always how you respond to what happens, and that's in life and game of football, everything. And we've been a very consistent program for many years now because of kind of what we call the windshield mentality of, hey, you put everything you got into it each week. It's the biggest game of the year. Fortunately, most of them have gone our way, but occasionally, hey, it doesn't. And if you don't have the right mindset, it can be a stumbling block for you. If you do have the right mindset, it can be an opportunity to grow. And that's kind of, I think, why we've been able to be very consistent, just having that mindset and not getting, too high with a big win or too down with a tough loss and letting that define you or destroy your season. Just let it develop you. And so, I think that's a choice. Every time you have any type of setback, it's a choice. And same thing when you have a lot of success, it's a choice on how you process that and how you refocus on what's next. And that's the culture that we've tried to create here. And this is a very young football team. I mean, we got 6 seniors, and our juniors are coming off their first. They went 14-1, 14-1. So they haven't had a lot of so-called failure, if you will. So when you got a young team, you're always coaching, and you, as a coach, you're always anxious to, all right, how are these guys going to respond? And are they listening? Or what's the leadership? How's the leadership going to step up? And so I've been really proud of this team because I've seen a lot of growth in them over the last few weeks. I think that's, again, just a good sign of the type of young men that we have, our coaches, and just the culture that we have. So, we responded. We self-evaluate. We go back to work, and you try to go win the next one. And we got 8 wins, and we're excited about that. But, we want to get 9. So can't get 10 until you get 9, and that's our focus.
NC State obviously has played you close the last couple seasons. Syracuse has improved. Just what you can say about the climate of the Atlantic Division, which is supposed to be yourselves and Florida State, but obviously many teams have found ways to improve over time.
Yeah, those other teams they're not getting that memo. So this is a great conference, top to bottom. And I've said it many times. I've been kind of beating that drum for the past few years, and all you got to do is look at the I don't know, what do we have? We were like 9-3 in bowl games last year, postseason success, and the amount of teams that have been bowl eligible. This league is incredibly difficult. I mean, every single week anybody can beat anybody. I mean, it's not Clemson and Florida State. Anybody in this division can beat you. I have such great respect for the job that Dazio's doing at BC. Such great respect for Dino and what he's done at Syracuse. I mean, Dave Doran has built a great team and program at NC State. I mean, they're a handful. Louisville. I mean, they got the Heisman Trophy winner over there. I mean, they're a nightmare to get ready for. This is a Wake Forest and what Clawson has done. I mean, putting them back and making them bowl eligible, and I mean, it's just the consistency that you're seeing in this division is incredible. Obviously, Jimbo. I mean, he's as successful a coach and program as there is in college football. I know they had the year they wanted to have this year, and sometimes you got to look beyond just the scoreboard. But man, they're Florida State, and he's an unbelievable coach. So, I mean, this is a really, really difficult league and an incredibly difficult division. But you know what? Isn't that the way we want it? I mean, to me, that's the way you want it. For years, everybody talked about, how bad this league was, and we couldn't win postseason, and, couldn't win out of conference. And it's not really a discussion anymore. Anybody that really understands and pays attention, this league is top to bottom incredibly strong. And if you don't show up, I don't care who you are, you got a chance to get beat. And our guys understand that. And, it's just a bunch of good coaches. And, I'm proud of this league.
Thanks, Coach. Appreciate it.
You got it.
Any more questions for Coach Sweeney?
Ladies and gentlemen, for a question, it's 1-4 on your telephone. We have a question from the line of Mark Berman with Roanoke Times. Please go ahead.
Good morning. What's your assessment of how your run defense is playing lately as you get ready for that Florida State running game?
Did you say our run defense?
Yeah.
Well, I didn't think we were great last week. And man, give them some credit. I thought they had a heck of a group. Their offensive line, their backs, quarterback's a great player, and we didn't fit some things very well. They do a good job with the stretch, and Florida State, that's one of their main plays is running the stretch and the counter and quick toss and inside zone. It's just a lot like NC State. So we're going to have to play a lot better. We got to fit things properly. We got to leverage the football. This is a group that if you don't contain the ball, they get outside of you, you're in trouble. And so we got to set the edge, and backers have to do a good job of fitting it properly and playing over the top when they're supposed to play over the top, and not running underneath, and then same thing with our secondary. They're a big part of our run game. So it just all ties together, but. We've been very good from a season standpoint, but we still got a lot of room for improvement, no question about it. Getting off of blocks, finishing tackles. We missed a lot of tackles last week. So, for us to continue on the path we want to be on, we're going to have to get a little better.
Thank you.
Our next question comes from the line of Christopher Heidel with the Herb FM Sports Radio. Please go ahead.
Hey, Dabo. How you doing?
I'm good, thank you.
I talked to you on Sunday. You were getting ready for Florida State. What did you see since Sunday on film? Because I know you just started, when I was talking to you, you just started looking at them. Yeah. How dangerous are they at a 3-5 squad?
They're very dangerous. I promise you, there's no coach that's going to turn on the tape and be excited about playing Florida State. They got players everywhere. I mean, they're very experienced up front in the offensive line. These receivers are massive. Number 18, Tate, he's 6'5", 225, 30 pounds. Great ball skilled guy. Number 89, he's 6'3", 220-something. That number 8's a great player. He's not as big, but man, he's a heck of a playmaker for them. Akers is considered the best back in the country coming out of high school, and man, he's as advertised. He's thick and strong, averaging 5.5 yards a carry. Very good player. Their tight end is an outstanding player, Izzo. They use him well. And then the quarterback has just gotten better and better. He's not a true freshman anymore. He's gotten better and better and better as the year has gone. I mean, they've had a tough situation. You know, they lose probably a Heisman candidate with their quarterback, and now you got a true freshman in there. And, you know, they've lost some close games, but they've been in position to win, and, you know, that's because of the type of talent that they have. But this kid has really improved. He can push the ball down the field. They do a great job with their screen game. They'll max it up and take some shots. But, you know, they're built by running the football. I mean, that's who they are. And, you know, if they can run the ball on you, you're in trouble. So, you know, it's going to be a huge challenge for us. And then Jimbo's a great coach. They do a good job of just formationing and creating leverage, whether it's in the passing game or the run game. They do as good a job as anybody we play, you know, schematically year in and year out. And then defensively, I mean, they got, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. They got about 9 or 10 guys that started for them last year, you know, a number of games. So, bunch of experience. They got some freaky dudes in the secondary, led by that number 3, Derwin James. He is unbelievably long and athletic. And then they're excellent up front. I mean, number 9, Josh Sweat, is a great football player. 91 is as good a D tackle as we've seen. 99 is a great player. I mean, they got guys. They got a bunch of them. So all their guys are back at backer, and just a really good team. So, I mean, they're just typical Florida State. Same, you know, the only thing different with Florida State this year is just the record. You know, that's it. And but the personnel, the talent, the athleticism, it's just typical Florida State. They've had 3 games that have been kind of the last play. And like I said, a true freshman quarterback in a difficult scheme. He's had to kind of learn on the ropes. This is an outstanding group and well coached, and you know, it's just typical Clemson Florida State matchup. 2 good teams, and it's going to be a tough one.
Coach,
good luck.
Appreciate it.
Mike Finn in Greensboro. Thanks for being with us today. Good luck this weekend, and we'll talk to you next Wednesday.
All right, appreciate it. Thank you.
We now welcome Florida State head coach Jimbo Fisher, whose Seminoles will travel to Clemson for Saturday's game against the fourth-ranked Tigers in Memorial Stadium. Again, the game will have a 3:30 p.m. kickoff, be nationally televised by ESPN. Coach, just a brief opening statement, and we'll go to questions.
Yes, very proud of our team, the way we competed in Syracuse. A very hard-fought victory. Syracuse is playing great football this year. I've done a great job. Dino and the guys have really made a heck of an improvement on that team, and they were a very good football team. We were very fortunate to come out of that, but our kids played very hard. There's some things we got to continue to work on and grow on as a team, but very hard at their competitiveness and nature to win and make some big plays on offense. Defense did a nice job. We got third down. They gave up a couple plays, and we got to do a better job on offense on third down, something we had been doing on both sides, but something we got to continue to work on. But, you know, in those regards, very excited to go play Clemson as far as, you know, what they mean and kind of program they are and what Dabo's done up there. But at the same time, it's going to be an extremely difficult game. They're by far the team that does the most complete team that you play offense, defense, special teams, and we'll have our hands full and have to play a great game. Questions?
Ladies and gentlemen, for a question, it's 1-4 on your telephone. Our question comes from David Hale with ESPN.com. Please go ahead.
Hey, Jimbo, the defense has 6 takeaways this year, which I'm sure is well below what your typical expectations would be. I'm curious how much of that might be related to just the fact that you've been in so many close games and maybe they're a little reluctant to take, you know, risks on a play to try and jump a route or something like that, that they're playing maybe a little more or a little less aggressively than they typically would in past years.
No, I don't think that's the case. I think turnovers come in bunches sometimes. You got to make plays. We had a couple opportunities to make a couple more in this last game. I mean, you know, what you're at. So I don't think that has anything to do with it.
So is it just, you know, a matter of luck then, or is it? I mean,
no, you got to make turnovers. You got to create pressures. You got to, you know, hit your quarterback. You got to give them. And when you get opportunities to catch a ball or strip a ball or get on a fumble, you got to do that. And we've had a couple opportunities which we haven't, and we got to create some more situations where we pressure them or guys make bad decisions. But also we play some guys with quarterbacks that have made good decisions with the ball and taken care of it.
Thank you, Bo.
Thank you.
Our next question comes from the line of Wayne McGahey with Tallahassee Democrat. Please go ahead.
Hey, Jimbo.
Hey.
What is Jock Patrick's status for this weekend? Will he be able to play against Clemson?
Yes. Yes. Jock will play.
How has he looked? Sorry.
He did good practice.
How has he looked
in
good practice?
Practices and looks well, and he should be able to go.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next question comes from the line of Dan Tortora with WakeUpCallDT.com. Please go ahead.
Good morning, Coach. How are you?
Fine. How are you?
Doing well. I know you spoke in your intro about Syracuse a little bit. Just to go a little further on what you think about what that team's looked like since Dino Babers has taken over a year ago.
Tremendous. I mean, just the eyeball test, just their strength, their size, the ability to change their bodies in the weight room have done a great job. You think about what they've done this year. I mean, they played us to a one-possession game, had a chance to win the game. They defeated Clemson. Miami was 20-19 with 2 or 3 minutes to go in the game, and had it all the way down. And LSU was like 26-24, 28-20, something like that. I mean, and last year all those games were blowout games against them. So I mean, you think about the significant changes they've made and what they've done. He's done one heck of a job, and then they've won the game. So I mean, they're dynamic on offense. They got players, and defense has done a really good job. So I mean, I think he's done a heck of a job.
And I asked this to Debo Sweeney as well. It's typical for the Atlantic Division for people to think of Clemson and Florida State, but to see how this division has improved, just what you can say about how teams have really come up and made this a very difficult division to play in.
Extremely difficult. I mean, it made it extremely difficult. And like I said, a year ago, you go back and look at it, I mean, it's one of the best divisions in football, period. You look at any division in football across the country, I think it's definitely one of the best ones, if not the best.
Thanks, Coach. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Our next question comes from the line of Mark Berman with Roanoke Times. Please go ahead.
Good morning. What's your assessment of your run defense as you get ready to take on that Clemson ground game?
We play pretty well on the run. I mean, like I say, Derek and Josh and those guys, but you're going to have to be very physical. And the thing they do, they make you commit to it so much, which creates all the one-on-ones in their pass game. So, I mean, and then the quarterback runs. That's the thing. It really, because they get up numbers that way when the quarterback runs, and they run a lot of different runs with him, so that makes it extremely difficult. So we're going to have to really, I mean, find ways to add guys to the box when you have to, but at the same time, you can't make yourself too vulnerable. So it's going to be a hard mix.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next question comes from the line of Christopher Heidel with Herb FM Sports Radio. Please go ahead.
Hey, Jimbo. How you doing?
Fine, Chris. How are you, buddy?
I'm doing great. Just talk about Blackman. How's his development going? Because last week against Syracuse, he looked like he didn't turn over the ball a lot, like a couple of weeks ago with the exchanges or anything. Look, how's he improving?
He is all the little fundamental things daily and the situations he's in, and the experience of being in those situations and being able to execute your fundamentals. And like I say, not worrying about winning and just worrying about playing. And he's doing a much better job. He's improving in all areas. I mean, across the board. It's reads or game situation. Being able to create plays. He's getting better.
And talk about how dangerous is it to play down in Clemson. How great is it, that environment, to play for a away team, and how are you guys going to get ready for that environment? Because they love their football down there.
No, they do. We everybody. There's a lot of people in the South that love it. That's for sure, and they definitely do. And the noise, the crowd noise. You practice with it. You have it out there in your practice, so you guys can communicate and do those things. But you still can't simulate. I mean, they got great players and got a great program, and great tradition. Always have.
Well, good luck and have safe travels to Clemson.
Thank you.
Coach, this is Mike Finn in Greensboro. Thanks for being with us today. Good luck this weekend, and we'll talk to you next Wednesday.
Thank you, Mike. Have a great day, bud.
We now welcome Louisville head coach Bobby Petrino, whose Cardinals will host Virginia this Saturday at Papa John's Cardinal Stadium in Louisville. The game will have a 3:30 p.m. kickoff, be nationally televised by ESPNU. A win by the Cardinals makes them bowl eligible for the 8th consecutive year. Coach, just a brief opening statement, and we'll go to questions.
Well, we're coming off a good bye week. I think we needed it. We needed to take a little breath and get back and work on some technique and fundamentals and ones versus ones. Also, we're able to get our coaches out on the road and recruiting, and that was good for us. We are looking forward to being back home and playing back in Louisville against a very good Virginia team. They've been playing really good football. Quarterbacks executing and throwing the ball well. Made some huge plays last week to help them win the game. And they have a really good defense, so it'll be a great challenge for us.
Questions for Coach Petrino?
Ladies and gentlemen, for a question, it's 1-4 on your telephone. We have a question from Mike Barber with Richmond Times-Dispatch. Please go ahead.
Morning, Bobby. I'm curious how you've seen their defense improve from last year to this in terms of they seem a little bit more comfortable what they're doing, and they seem to be doing a little bit more schematically moving some guys around.
Yeah, they do a really good job on defense. They've got a defensive front that's very active, a great pass rusher in Chris Peace, and a really good inside linebacker in Micah Kaiser, and they're really solid in the secondary. So they've been playing very good defense.
As you look at that secondary, number 21 for them, Thornhill, he's moved from safety to corner, then he missed a few games. What kind of an impact does he have when he's in the game for them?
Yeah, he's a great cover down corner. You know, we're very familiar with him. We've been playing against him, and he does great technique, good skills, and a willing tackler. So he does a lot for their defense.
Thank you.
Our next question comes from the line of Gary Graves with Associated Press. Please go ahead.
Hey, good morning, Bobby.
Morning, Gary.
What is the team's attitude now? I guess with now trying to chase a bowl bid, as opposed to maybe clinching it as opposed to previous years.
Yeah, we've had a good attitude. Our guys have come out to practice and worked hard. You know, it's we're trying to really just focus on winning one game at a time. But I've been impressed with our leadership, and obviously we would like to have been in the run for the conference championship. But right now it's about just winning football games, and then seniors understanding that they don't have a lot left. So they've really come out to practice and did a nice job leading for us.
Yeah. As a follow-up, has that kind of created a different type of urgency for you guys now?
Well, I kind of feel like, you know, it's always been that type of urgency, but, you know, I think that the seniors do understand that, you know, time's running out, and you always kind of, you know, understand how quickly it went by. We get 2 more home games here in our stadium, so they've worked extremely hard, and they've kept a positive attitude. And, you know, our guys are enjoying going out and practicing hard and being good teammates.
Thanks, Bobby.
Thank you.
Our next question comes from the line of Dan Tortora with WakeUpCallGT.com. Please go ahead with your question.
Good morning, Coach. How are you?
Good, Dan. How you doing?
Doing well. This season, through the adversity that the team has had, I know you're one step away from being bowl eligible, but what did you learn the most about yourself at this point as a head coach going through some of that adversity?
Yeah, well, we've had a lot of things go on, and I think the one thing that I've tried to do is stick to our beliefs and understand that, you know, we feel like we know how to do things right, and rely on the players to enjoy the day, win the day, and have fun out at practice, do a good job in the classroom. You know, we're really trying to make sure that we have a positive attitude. And, you know, football seasons get long and hard, and they're way different than basketball or baseball, where you get to come right back and play the next day. So it always challenges your attitude, and all our players understand that they can get up every day and control their attitude and their work ethic. And that's really what we're focusing on, those 2 things.
And then as far as Lamar Jackson, I mean, we know that he's a very talented player when it comes to a lot of different pieces of the game, but how have you seen him respond to the adversity and grow as a leader throughout the process?
Yeah, what he's done is just try to work harder and encourage more and, you know, practice harder on the practice field. Lamar's had a great year. You know, some of the things he's been able to do, throwing the football, running the football. You know, just wish we could have won more games so that he would be getting the credit that he deserves.
Thanks, Coach. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Our next question comes from the line of Doug Doughty with the Roanoke Times. Please go ahead.
How much of a transition has your team undergone defensively? I know you have a new coordinator this year, and where do you see that unit right now?
Yeah, I mean we've had our struggles. We haven't been very healthy. We lost 2 really good defensive linemen over the summer. One with a medical issue, and another one that we had to dismiss from the team. And then our other best defensive lineman has not been healthy all year. So we've been trying to piece things together and stay together. We've had some good games and we've had some bad games. So we just got to try to improve here in the last 3 weeks and play the type of defense you need to play to win the game.
Well, was there any transition, or is it still pretty much what you played throughout the years?
I mean, you always have transition. Every year's a little bit different. So we're just trying to keep them all together.
Our next question comes from the line of Larry Williams with Tiger Illustrated. Please go ahead.
Bobby, when you get to this point of the season in general, how hard is it to sort of have a feel for, in practice, when to back off and to sort of strike that balance between giving your players a break but still preparing them?
Yeah, these seasons keep getting longer and harder, and one of the things I've always tried to do in November is to make sure that we get to the game fresh, both physically and mentally. You know, we played 9 straight weeks before a bye, so I think that was good for us, and I think it's helped us. We gave them some days off, and they got away from each other for a while and came back with a great attitude to work hard. But I always cut the practices down a little bit in November. My philosophy is to get to the game fresh, physically and mentally.
Do you guys use that catapult system?
I didn't hear you.
Do you guys use that catapult GPS system?
Yes, sir, we do.
Has that helped?
Yeah, it helps a lot. It really, really get to understand, the workload that they're doing, and also the effort that they're putting into it. And our players like to check it and see how much, they put out each day at practice.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Any more questions for Coach Petrino?
Ladies and gentlemen, for questions, it's 1-4 on your telephone.
Coach, thanks for being with us today. Good luck this weekend, and we'll talk to you next Wednesday.
Thanks, Mike.
We'll be joined by Coach Dino Babers of Syracuse right at 11:10, which is about a minute and a half away. Okay, we're back, and we're joined by Syracuse head coach Dino Babers. Before we get to Coach, just a reminder that after Coach, instead of our normal break, Larry Fedora of North Carolina will be available before we get to Paul Johnson. So it'll be Coach Babers, Larry Fedora, and then Paul Johnson. And, of course, Coach Babers' Syracuse team will host Atlantic Division rival Wake Forest this Saturday at the Carrier Dome in Syracuse. The game will be a 3 p.m. kickoff. be televised over 16 different regional sports networks, including the Yes Network in New York and Fox Sports South in North Carolina. Coach, just a brief opening statement. We'll go to questions.
Well, first of all, we're looking forward to playing Wake Forest. They're a fine football team. Coach does a fantastic job down there. Obviously, you saw the effort they put into the Notre Dame game, and their offense and their defense is playing extremely well. The amount of points they scored on Notre Dame was the most that Notre Dame's given up all year. And we know that contest is going to be extremely difficult here on Saturday. I thought the effort at Florida State was really good. It was unfortunate that we came in on the short end of the stick, but that's a really fine coached football team with outstanding football players, and they deserve to win the game. Questions?
Ladies and gentlemen, for a question, it's 1-4 on your telephone. We have a question from the line of Dan Tortora with wakeupcalldt.com. Please go ahead.
Good morning, Coach. How are you?
Good morning.
To take a look at the team this season, in your second season with the squad, what have they taught you this year? Because a lot of these losses have been a lot closer than they were last year. It's come down to fourth quarter, one possession at times. Just what you've taken away from this year's team moving forward.
Well, I just think the being consistent and being persistent. You know, there just comes a time when you have close losses, and then all of a sudden the dam breaks, and instead of losing the close ones, you win the close ones, and then instead of winning a close one, all of a sudden you start winning some by some very large margins. I mean, last year we were getting beat very convincingly. This year I would like to think that we've been in every single football game. And hopefully we don't have to wait till next year before we get on top of that and start winning some close ones.
Eric Dungy, obviously his importance to this team goes without saying, but to look at what he did in Florida State, to have the ankle taped up, speaking with you on the sideline, going back into the game, just about your decision to put him in there and just what he did to spark this team to come back in and be that leader that he's been.
First of all, at Syracuse University, that decision is not mine. That's our medical people. They make all those decisions. They merely tell me whether he can or cannot go, and they gave him the green light. Eric was all for it, and the only thing I wanted to make sure was that he stayed within himself, and if he felt like he could protect himself, let me know that we'll try to win the game a different way. He's a competitor. He's a battler. Obviously, he is the straw that stirs the drink for us, and the way he competed in that situation, I didn't know if I'd have him for one series or two series for the first half or not in the second half, and there he was at the end of the game driving us down to get us into field position for the winning field goal. I just think he's a heck of a competitor, and I think that people around the conference are starting to recognize that.
Thank you, Coach. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Our next question comes from the line of David Hale with ESPN.com. Please go ahead.
Hey, Dino, how much does a bowl bid mean for the program as you try to develop a program and getting that, not just the additional attention of a bowl game or that carrot at the end, but the extra practice time and all of that stuff?
Well, I think all that stuff is really important. Obviously last year, we were one win away from being bowl eligible, even though we would not have gotten to 500 because our APR score was so extremely high, and based off of how many really football teams that had qualified last year. And I think that any time that you can get a team that hasn't been bowling in a while in a bowl game, those extra practices, the motivation that it gives the young men on the team, and the nudge or the extra boost that you get in recruiting is going to always help that program to either establish itself or reestablish itself as one of the better programs coming around. Right now we're selling a dream, and when you get that first bowl bid, you get to talk about a reality.
And I assume if you had an opportunity at 5 wins to take a bowl bid, you would be doing that again this year?
I don't know how it looks with how many teams have qualified and stuff like that, but that would definitely be something that we would look forward to. Yes, sir.
Yeah. Thanks, Dino.
Mm-hmm.
Our next question comes from the line of John Kekis with Associated Press. Please go ahead.
Hey, Coach. You're one of a few second-year coaches in the ACC. Can you just talk about the progress you feel like you've made since you've been there, and are you where you thought you'd be at this time?
Well, when you're in the ACC, and especially when you're in the ACC Atlantic, you're really not sure of your progress until you start playing the games. It's such a competitive league, both sides of it. The coaching is really, really undervalued. And the chess games that are going on, even last week at Florida State, the moves that are being made between the coaches, in between the plays, the timeouts, everything is top notch, and it really sharpens your skill, as they say in the book. Iron sharpens iron. One man sharpens another. When you go through the ACC Atlantic, it sharpens your coaching skills. And you may not be able to win every game, but it's definitely making you better every time you go into a contest.
Do you feel like you've made lots of progress, though? I mean, you've done a lot of things, changing diets, way the guys work out, and things like that.
We're doing things to change the culture, but I think the biggest thing, especially with the millennials, is seeing the results. And until we have something that we can grab onto, a piece of fruit, some low-hanging fruit, and say, here it is, we do these things because we can achieve this right here, I think we're still on a journey until we can reach that point.
The you've played Miami. I assume you think they're pretty far along, but he had a good base to start with.
Yes, I would concur with that statement.
Thanks, Coach.
Thank you.
Our next question comes from the line of Matthew Gutierrez with Daily Orange. Please go ahead.
Hey, good morning, Dino. Thank you for your time. How would you assess the run defense of late?
Wake Forest's run defense is really, really good. You look at, I think that some of the numbers, you look at the numbers that Notre Dame put up and the numbers that Georgia Tech put up, I think you need to take those numbers out of it. And when you take those numbers out of it, what you'll see is a team that Boston College had trouble running the football on, that obviously Florida State had some trouble running the football on. I mean, these guys are good against the run, and they're going to stop the run. There's no doubt about it. I just think that when you play Georgia Tech and the way Notre Dame is running the football this year, I just think that those two games kind of blow their numbers a little bit out of whack.
Thank you. And then I guess secondly, just your side, how would you assess your own run defense this year?
I think we're really good at stopping the run. Obviously we gave up, I think, 155 to the tailback or to Florida State in the first half, and then I think we came back and got it down to about 55 for that kid in the second half. But I think that we're good in the run. I think we can hold our own.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any more questions for Coach Babers?
Ladies and gentlemen, for a question, it's 1-4 on your telephone. Our next question is from Christopher Heidel with Herb FM Sports Radio. Please go ahead.
Hi, Christina. How you doing?
Good. How you doing?
Doing great. Just talk about the last three games against the elite teams in the ACC with Clemson, Florida State, and Miami. Where is your program after playing those three games against those elite programs?
We're a couple of touchdowns short. Those guys are really good, and they've been good for a long period of time. And everybody is chasing those historical teams, so to speak. But we're getting better. We're not there yet. We've got a lot of work to do, and obviously those guys are going to continue to get better. So if you start to settle and you think that you arrived, you're going to end up short and way out of the race. So we think that we're getting better, but we're not good enough, and we need to continue to strive to make ourselves where we can be competitive and maybe sometimes start winning some of those close games against some of those opponents.
And talk about your backup quarterback. I know Dungy last week got injured in the first couple series against Florida State. How's it like having a good backup quarterback, knowing that he knows the offense and you put him in any time and he's ready to go?
It's always an advantage to have an experienced backup. And that always makes that transition a little bit easier. But the key thing is you much rather play with your starter. There's a reason why one guy starts, and there's a reason why another guy's a backup. Zach's backed up Dungy for maybe the last 3 to 4 years, and he's done a really good job at it. But we would like to have our guy underneath the center more so than our backup.
Well, good luck this week.
Thank you.
Our next question comes from the line of Matthew Gutierrez with a Daily Orange. Please go ahead.
You know, Kendall Coleman back now. Could you just touch on what he brings and in what ways he helps the D-line, specifically Kendall?
Right now, Kendall's not 100% right now. He's out there doing his best, and he did a decent job at Florida State for his first time out. He needs to get back into conditioning a little bit. His conditioning bothered him in that game, and that's to be expected when you've been out for a long period of time. But, Kendall's leadership is what's so outstanding, and anytime you have him on a trip, anytime you have him in the locker room, anytime you have him in a group, that group is going to be more attunative. He's going to be more responsible for doing things right and not doing things wrong. I think the best thing he does right now, he gives us more depth at his position, which is allow other guys to play fresh and give more effort.
Thank you, Dino.
Thank you.
Coach, this is Mike Finn in Greensboro. Thanks for being with us today. Good luck this weekend, and we'll talk to you next Wednesday.
Thank you.
We now welcome North Carolina head coach Larry Fedora, whose Tar Heels have traveled to Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania for a Thursday night game against the Pitt Panthers at Heinz Field. The game will have a 7:30 p.m. kickoff. It will be nationally televised by ESPN. Pitt and UNC have played 11 times in a series that began in 1974 in Chapel Hill. And the average margin of victory in those 11 games is just 6.8 points per game. Coach, just a brief opening statement, and we'll go to questions.
Yes, we're putting the finishing touches on our week of preparation today and getting on a plane and flying to Pittsburgh this evening. And so looking forward to a great game against a really good football team tomorrow night.
Questions for Coach Fedora?
Ladies and gentlemen, for a question, it's 1-4 on your telephone. We have a question from the line of Mark Berman with Roanoke Times. Please go ahead.
Good morning. After playing that close game against Miami, what have you kind of been pointing to with your team to kind of say, hey, all right, this is what kept us in that game last week, and this is what we kind of need to capture every week?
Well, really, the theme hasn't changed. It's been, again, to take care of the football, and that's something that we didn't do. Create some takeaways on defense, and we did do that. And we need to play much better on special teams than we're doing right now. And we're, the theme is that we're very close, and we're playing with a lot of young guys and a lot of inexperienced guys, but we're very close. And if we can eliminate the mistakes, we can win some football games.
Thank you.
Our next question comes from the line of Jerry DiPaola with the Pittsburgh Tribune Review. Please go ahead.
Yes, Coach. I was just wondering, the improvement you've been seeing, especially in the Miami game. How is that game, the things you did in that game, different from things you were doing in previous games, other than the turnovers and things like that? What basic things are you doing better?
Well, defensively, we were able to shut down the running game. I think we gave up 1.8 yards per carry. Offensively, we made more explosive plays than we had, so that meant guys were making plays when they had opportunities. And everybody knows what the issues are. We turned the ball over 4 times, and then we gave up a game-changing play on special teams.
Thanks, Coach. Appreciate the time.
Any more questions for Coach Fedora?
Ladies and gentlemen, for a question, it's 1-4 on your telephone.
Coach, it looks like we're going to let you off pretty easy today with the Thursday night game. Thanks for being with us. Good luck tomorrow night.
Thanks, Mike. Appreciate it. See you soon.
Wednesday. We'll be joined by Coach Paul Johnson of Georgia Tech right at 11:30, which is approximately 5 minutes from now. Okay, we're back now. We're joined by Georgia Tech head coach Paul Johnson, whose Yellow Jackets will host Coastal Division rival and 17th ranked Virginia Tech this Saturday at Bobby Dodd Stadium in Atlanta. The game will be televised nationally to 120 different markets, including WUPA TV in Atlanta and WWCW TV in Roanoke, Lynchburg, Virginia. Coach, just a brief opening statement, and we'll go to questions.
Okay, good morning. Well, looking forward to getting back home after a couple of weeks on the road. Certainly Virginia Tech has another good football team. They're usually always pretty good, and this year's no exception. A lot of good players on defense, and they do a good job there, but always has them ready to play, and offensively some good skill guys. And they're playing well, 7-2, so they have a good record and a good season coming in.
Questions for Coach Johnson?
Ladies and gentlemen, for a question, it's 1-4 on your telephone. We have a question from the line of Mike Barber with Richmond Times-Dispatch. Please go ahead.
Morning, Coach. When Virginia Tech plays you, how involved are their corners in run stopping, and how do you think your offense challenges their corners?
Well, a lot of it depends on how Bud decides to play. I mean, in years past, they've played some two-trap coverage where their corners are very involved, and at other times it's been some man stuff where they weren't as involved. But, you know, they're always going to be somewhat, when you play an option team that runs the ball, the corners are always going to be involved some way or another.
And I'm curious, number 31 for them, Brandon Faison, he's a Georgia kid. What does he look like on film, and do you recall recruiting him at all or anything like that?
Yeah, we remember. I remember we recruited Brandon, and you know, he's been a good player for them. He's been a starter on and off for his 4 years there. So certainly he's been a valuable member for their team.
Thank you.
Our next question is from the line of Bill Haas of Greensboro. Please go ahead.
Yeah, Coach, their defense, especially against the rush, is ranked very high nationally. Of course, you're ranked high nationally rushing offense. What do they do defensively that stops the run so well?
Well, they're big and physical, and as I said, I think Bud does a good job, and they play a lot of people close to the line. You watch them on tape, no matter who they play, you don't have any problem finding all 11 in the frame. They're up there pretty tight unless they're playing some kind of too deep coverage or it's third and long. So I think they're committed to playing the run and stopping it. They get a lot of negative plays because they get a lot of sacks and a lot of tackles for loss. So when you do that, you're usually going to be pretty good against the run.
Over the years, as you have played against Bud Foster defenses, have you found anything that's consistently successful?
Well, I don't know. We haven't had a lot of success against them. We've won a few. They've won more than we have. But, you know, it's going to be a counter-move game. If you find something that's successful, it won't be there long. So you just have to keep playing. And we'll run our system, and I'm sure they're going to run theirs. And whoever executes the best will have a chance to win.
Thank you.
Any more questions for Coach Johnson?
Ladies and gentlemen, for a question, it's 1-4 on your telephone. We do have a question. It's coming from the line of Mark Barber with Richmond Times-Dispatch. Please go ahead.
Yeah, Coach, a quick follow-up. On the other side of the ball for them offensively, what do you see from Josh Jackson, the redshirt freshman quarterback?
Well, I think he's played well for him. The thing that's impressive to me about him is how tough he is. I mean, that game last week against Miami, holy moly, I mean, that kid took a beating. And he got up and kept playing and kept running their system. And so you can see he's got good football awareness, and he's really a tough kid.
And when you look at, and this kind of plays off what you just said, but when you look at their offensive line, not the best protection so far this season. What do you see from their front?
Well, I think it's the same guys who have been playing. There's three of the same guys that played a year ago, and people tend to forget sometimes when you're struggling in protection. They've played against two pretty good defensive lines in Clemson and Miami. We've played both those teams, and we struggle to protect against them too. They have something to do with that. The other teams are allowed to have good players too.
Sounds good. Thanks, Coach.
Yeah.
We do have another question from the line of Bill Haas of Greensboro. Please go ahead.
Paul, since this is Taquan Marshall's first year as a starter, how has his development come along during the course of the season? What do you see his biggest areas of improvement?
Well, I think just being comfortable and understanding the offense, and he's played well. I mean, we've played, every road game we've had has been in the rain, and he's not a big guy. We struggle to throw the ball a little bit. I don't know if that has anything to do with it or not. But the bottom line is we've been ahead with less than 2 minutes to go in every game but one. So he's played well up there Saturday. We weren't hitting on all cylinders offensively, but he did lead we went 90 yards in the fourth quarter to retake the lead with about 3 minutes to go, and we got it back down to the 35 at the end. So he's played well. I'm proud of the way he's played.
Also, you've got a young linebacker, Swilling, who is, I believe, is just a freshman, has really come along for you this year. Tell me about his progress.
Yeah, well, Bruce Jordan Swilling has been very productive in the last game for sure. I think he had 12 tackles, an interception for a touchdown, a forced fumble, and a recovered fumble. So he was very productive. We had lost Brant Mitchell for a couple of games, who's our starting linebacker, and Bruce had to go in and start and play a bunch of reps, and he's gone in there and acquitted himself quite well. He's played hard.
Thank you.
Yep.
Our next question comes from the line of David Hale with ESPN.com. Please go ahead.
Hi, Paul. Having played both of them relatively recently, I know it's not etched in stone, but it certainly looks like Miami and Clemson might be the two teams that are playing for the conference championship this year. What were your impressions of each of them? Do you see that as a pretty even matchup, or what would be your takeaway?
I wouldn't have any idea. I learned a long time ago not to try to predict games. I think that both of them have some really good players. They're set up a little bit differently, but they're both really good on the defensive front, and they both have good skill players on offense. So it'll be an interesting game.
Thanks, Paul.
Yep.
Any more questions for Coach Johnson?
Ladies and gentlemen, for a question, it's 1-4 on your telephone.
Coach, thanks for being with us today. Good luck this weekend, and we'll talk to you next Wednesday.
All right, take care.
Okay, we'll now have a break until we're joined by Coach Justin Fuente of Virginia Tech right at 11:50.
championship game.
Okay, we are back, and we now welcome Virginia Tech head coach Justin Fuente, who's Virginia Tech Hokies, ranked 17th nationally by the College Football Playoff, also by AP and the Amway Coaches Poll, will travel to Atlanta, Georgia for a Saturday game against Coastal Division rival Georgia Tech at Bobby Dodd Stadium. The game will have a 12:20 p.m. kickoff and will be televised to 120 TV stations of the ACC TV network. Coach, just a brief opening statement. We'll go to questions.
Sure. Another road trip for us this week. I'm going to Georgia Tech. Going to be a heck of a challenge for us and all of the problems that Paul Johnson and his staff provide their scheme. And, it's going to take a heck of a week of preparation, and we'll have to play really well to have a chance. But we had a good week or a good day of practice yesterday, and hopefully have another good day today.
Questions for Coach Fuente.
Ladies and gentlemen, for a question, it's 1-4 on your telephone. We do have a question from the line of Dan Tortora with WakeUpCallDT.com. Please go ahead.
Good afternoon, Coach. How are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Doing well. Just to take a look at this season and just what your takeaways have been up to this point that you've learned the most about this team as they've tried to progress forward this year.
Well, we've got a resilient group of guys. I mean, they've battled and competed in every game. I don't know what other people expected of us coming into the season, but we've certainly brought a bunch of young guys along that are playing a lot of snaps, and we've been led by a veteran defense that has played at an elite level at times, by very good special teams, and an offense that can, in order to be successful, is going to have to be opportunistic and take care of the football.
And then as far as you being with Virginia Tech last season and this season and before that with Memphis, what have you learned the most about yourself since coming from Memphis to Virginia Tech?
Oh, I don't know. I think every job is different, and there are always different challenges at each spot, and kind of learning and adapting to those challenges, I think is important in this business, while still staying true to what you believe in and how you'd like for it to look. So, I'm enjoying it. I enjoy my job. I enjoy coming to work every day, and I've genuinely enjoyed these kids.
Thanks, Coach. I appreciate it.
Our next question comes from the line of Andrea Adelson with ESPN.com. Please go ahead.
Justin, can you describe what it was like going through
the travel delays and that whole situation you guys went through after the Miami game, and had you been through anything like that before?
No, I've never been through anything like that. I've been a part of late games and early morning arrivals, but never one that was delayed in the manner that this was delayed. As far as describing it, it was I would use the word frustrating, but there's really nothing you can do. I mean, you don't have any control over the situation. You try and make the best decisions you can, try and make sure you keep your team fed, and do the best thing you can do for them to get some rest. So it wasn't like we were out there doing manual labor. We were just kind of sitting around wasting time. So our kids and staff handled it well. But it was, large, long spouts of boredom, I would classify it as.
So how did you make sure everybody was fed?
Well, when we finally landed wherever it was we were, Danielle Bartlestein, our director of ops, had some people in the community, some restaurants in the community come on out and bring some food, and we essentially just catered food while we waited on our buses.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Our next question is from Bill House from Greensboro. Please go ahead.
Justin, I know that Georgia Tech, runs a scheme that you don't see very often, probably once a year most seasons when you play them. What is it about that makes it so difficult to prepare for?
Well, if everybody ran it, it would still be a good offense. It's always been a good offense. It's stayed the test of time. It's just so different than what you work on a daily basis, and they are very, very good at it. I don't mean to take anything away from Paul and what they're doing. Paul understands all of the adjustments. He's been running it for so long. He understands it inside and out, much in the way that Bud understands the defense that we run inside and out and can make adjustments throughout the game. But, the fact is you never see it. You don't see it daily in spring ball or two-a-days or in very many weeks during the season. And then the other aspect of it is they are very good at it. They are execution-oriented, and they have answers to whatever it is you give them, and can really cause you problems.
Can your scout team give you a decent look at what your defense is facing, or is this where the film room really comes in particularly important?
Well, it is a challenge. I mean, it's a challenge because it's different than what those kids are doing. What they do on a daily basis. It's one thing to line up in four wides and tell them all to run curl routes. They pretty much all know that. It's another thing to tell them to arc block or load block. That's just something that's different than what they do on a daily basis. So yes, you can coach those guys into giving you a good look. It's probably never going to be, and it's this way every week, it's never going to be exactly the same as what you're actually going to face. The problem is your starting offense can't give that look either. Like usually during a normal week, your starting offense can do some things to help simulate what you're going to see. Well, we can't really put it's not realistic for us to put our first team offense out there and run the triple option and have it look anything close to what it's going to look like on Saturday.
Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
Our next question comes from the line of David Teal with the Daily Press. Please go ahead.
Piggybacking on Bill's question, Justin, who is your scout team quarterback this week?
Khalil has been working at it. Khalil Pimpleton's done a really good job so far.
Okay. And then you mentioned that you have a defense that has been playing at times at an elite level. this season. In regards to defending what you'll see Saturday, how critical is it to have tackles like Ricky and Tim, who have obviously played well?
Well, they're going to have to play well, and when you play a offense like this, there becomes maybe even more technique or some different techniques involved in terms of how to defend and read blocks and see what's going on. So it's going to be incredibly important that we're strong in the middle. Everybody's always said, it's been said a million times, that you've got to be able to tackle the fullback in the triple option scheme. Sometimes that comes down to your defensive tackles, and it's going to be really important that we do a good job and that we defeat some blocks.
Thank you, sir.
Any more questions for Coach Fuente?
Ladies and gentlemen, for a question, it's 1-4.
Coach, thanks for being with us today. Good luck this weekend, and we'll talk to you next Wednesday.
You bet. Thank you.
We now welcome Wake Forest head coach Dave Clawson, whose Demon Deacons will travel to Syracuse, New York for a Saturday game against Atlantic Division rival Syracuse at the Carrier Dome. The game will have a 3 p.m. kickoff, be televised nationally by 16 different regional sports networks, including the YES Network in New York and Fox Sports South in North Carolina. Coach, just a brief opening statement. We'll go to questions.
Yeah, we're looking forward to head up to Syracuse and play a ACC rival. We'll need to bounce back after Notre Dame, which is a game that I thought our kids played hard, competed, and did some good things offensively, and just didn't get enough stops on defense. So the challenge will be tough this week. Syracuse is a much improved football team. You can tell they're in year 2 in the system. They're playing extremely fast. The quarterback, Dungy, I think, is a great player, a competitor, a winner. They've got 2 receivers that are putting up video game numbers, and I think they're improved in every aspect of their program, offensive line, defense, special teams, and they're always very difficult, even more difficult in the Dome. So this will be another good challenge for our football team.
Questions for Coach Clawson?
Our first question comes from Dan Tortora with WakeUpCallDT.com. Please go ahead.
Good afternoon, Coach. How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Doing well. Thanks for asking. To go off of your introduction about Syracuse and their improvements, just what you've seen from last season to this season on film and where they've improved as you get set for that matchup.
Oh, I mean, their improvement is across the board. I mean, I think when everyone talks about Syracuse, the first thing that comes up is the offense and the speed of it, but they're running the ball a lot better. I think their offensive line is really improved. I think the backs are improved. The quarterback has always been a good player and a competitor, and now he's even more comfortable with the system. He gets rid of the football so quickly. He knows exactly where to go with it. Ishmael and Phillips are probably as good or dynamic as any 1-2 combination that you see. I mean, they're putting up huge numbers, and the ball's thrown in tight spaces. And I think their defense has really, really improved. They've taken a major step on defense. Their front's better. Their linebacking crew is very experienced. They've played a lot of football, and that's Bennett, Franklin, and Thomas. And I think they're improved in the secondary. I just think across the board, when you watch them, they're better in every single way, and you don't beat Clemson or compete with Florida State or Miami, unless you're across the board. I mean, they have been in so many close games, and they've won some, and like us, they've had some near misses. So it's a really good football team.
And then on your side, to speak on the way that the team has played so far this season and some of those near misses, but being competitive in these games,
just where you've seen your team grow the most, and what you've taken away from being in a lot of these games and pushing teams like Notre Dame.
Well, we're better. We're I think certainly a lot more competitive against the better teams in our schedule. We're not winning and finding ways to win as many of those games as we'd like, but we're in them, which some of these games we haven't been in the past, but we're not happy to be in them. We need to figure out ways to win them. And, I think this is going to be a great challenge this week. That I think this league and this conference, probably top to bottom, is as competitive as it's ever been. And, Syracuse is a team like us that's trying to fight and work its way up and compete with elite teams and beat elite teams. And, I think we're in very similar spots.
Thanks, Coach. I appreciate your time.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Our next question comes from the line of Mike Berman with Roanoke Times. Please go ahead.
Good afternoon. What's your assessment of your pass defense as you get ready for that Syracuse passing game?
Well, I mean, overall this year it's been good. I think we're one of the better teams in the conference in terms of pass efficiency defense, but statistics can lie. In 2 out of the last 3 weeks, we really have not defended the run very well. When you play Georgia Tech and then Notre Dame, which are 2 of the better rushing teams in the country, those teams didn't really have to throw the ball. And we did not defend the pass at Notre Dame as well as we need to. We had some good breakups and got some good pressure, but Notre Dame got some big plays on us and dropped a few. So with the caliber of players we're seeing this week, with Dungy and the receiving core and the backs and the tight ends that Syracuse has, we're gonna have to play really well and to be close to the ball and prevent explosive plays.
Thank you.
Our next question comes from the line of Bill Haas with Greensboro. Please go ahead.
Yeah, Dave, how would you describe Eric Dungy as a quarterback and the things that he does?
I mean, there's certain guys when you watch him, and we've played against him now 3 straight years, but he's just a competitor. He's a winner. I'm sure he's a extremely type A, highly competitive guy, and you just look at some of the throws he makes and the way he hangs in the pocket and the way at times that he will extend plays and throw his body around to get a first down or get a touchdown. I mean, I really admire the way the guy plays the game. I think he plays it the right way. Again, I don't know him well. I've met Eric, 1 or 2 times after the game or at media day, but I'm sure that the people at Syracuse just absolutely love coaching him. I think he's a ball guy. I think he's one of those guys that probably lives it, and at times he just wills that football team to move the football, and I have great respect for him as a player and as a competitor.
He appears to be one of these guys that has little or no regard for his own body, the way he throws it around sometimes, and takes punishment.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's what competitors do. I mean, we have a quarterback like that too in John Wolford. That John's taken a lot of hits here, and he goes out and plays the next play, and is going to do what he needs to do to try to win the game. And we love that we have John Wolford, and we love coaching him, and his competitive drive and fire at times becomes the personality of our team, which is a really good thing for us. And I would say the same things in terms of Eric Dungy and Syracuse, that you can tell he's a competitor and a fighter and a winner, and he's like I said, there's a lot of good quarterbacks in the league, and this is one of the best. And again, not only do I think Syracuse has done a great job with him. I think they've utilized his skill set well, and I mean, he knows the offense. He knows where to go with it, and he's really efficient with it. And you didn't have to play against it. It'd be a lot of fun to watch.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Our next question comes from the line of Andrea Adelson with ESPN.com. Please go ahead.
Dave, we've talked a lot about the development of your offensive line and your run game. Do you feel like you guys are where you expected to be right now in terms of the improvement and the development there? Have you exceeded expectations? Where do you think you are?
I mean, I think we're right on track, Andrea. I think it's a unit that, I mean, our first year it was a little bit of a mix and mash group, and we redshirted all these guys, and then they all played as freshmen and took their licks and improved last year, and now they've taken the next step this year. And offensively, you need to be able to throw and run it when you're given the looks to do that. And I think now, if people line up and put 9 guys in the box, we feel comfortable throwing the football, and if teams are going to spread out with us, we feel comfortable running it. And that's where you want to get to in an offense, that you don't necessarily run it for 250 every week or throw it for 300, but you have the ability to do either of those things on any given week. And we are a really, really improved unit on offense across the board. And part of the reason we're running the football better is that our quarterbacks and our receivers are playing better, and our O-line's protecting better, and then you get better surfaces to run the football. You're not always trying to run it uphill or with bad numbers. So, it all goes hand in hand. But, yes, I think our offensive line is improved, and, the great thing about it is we're not playing one senior up there. So everybody comes back for another year or 2 years. So I expect us to continue to get better.
Thanks, Dave. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Our next question comes from the line of Leo Haggerty with It's Sports Magazine. Please go ahead.
Good afternoon, Coach.
Good afternoon to you.
Coach, probably the least recognizable coach on any college football staff is the strength and conditioning coach. On a scale of 1 being the lowest and 10 being the highest, how important is the strength and conditioning program to staying or becoming successful on the field?
A 12.
I like that answer, Coach. Coach, and since as late as the early 1990s, players still weren't lifting in season at some places. That philosophy's changed in 2017, hasn't it?
Yeah, I think that philosophy changed in 2000 or even 1990. Yeah, I mean, it's not our goal in the season to maintain. Is we have the expectation that all of our kids make gains in the season, and they're not going to be the gains they make in the off season, but that is a priority in the season, that we make sure they get 2 to 3 lifts a week, and we still take heavy weight, and we test them at the end of the season to see what the gains are, and hopefully there's minimal losses. But our strength coach here, Brandon Horrigan, I mean, he's been with me at 3 different schools, and there's no way that we would have developed players and won football games and had the success we've had if it's not for the job that he does. I mean, he's as important as any coach on our staff, and he is invaluable.
Thank you, Coach. Good luck this weekend.
Okay, thanks.
Our next question comes from the line of Matthew Gutierrez with a Daily Orange in Syracuse, New York. Please go ahead.
Good afternoon, Dave. Thank you so much for your time. Like you said, both defenses very strong, but given how potent Wake and Syracuse offenses have shown they can be, would you anticipate a more high-scoring attack this Saturday?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, I think both teams have to execute, and sometimes when you anticipate that, the defense gets sick of hearing it, and they step up and play their better game. So, right now both offenses are playing at a high level. I think Syracuse has really improved on defense, and you never know how the game's going to play out. But a lot of times when you anticipate those high-scoring games, sometimes it becomes the opposite.
Sure, and secondly, last year you hold Syracuse to 9 points, and I think what was a 3 or 4 possession win. What was the key to holding them? I know it was a different team, different year, but what was the key to holding them to under 10 points?
Well, the key was probably that there was a hurricane. So that I know that helped us a lot. It was really bad weather, and it was raining sideways, and that helped our defense a lot. And even though that game was 14-9, and they had the ball with 6 minutes left in the game. So even though the score finished out, I think 28-9, I mean, that was a competitive 4-quarter football game that either team could have won that football game. And again, we last year were kind of more of a conservative, run it, drain the clock type of offense, and Syracuse was a little, more throw it and go fast. And I think, certainly the weather helped us, because whenever it rains, I think it favors the team that plays a little slower and doesn't have the ball in the air as much. But we were very fortunate last year to win that game. That game could have gone either way.
Thank you, Coach.
You're welcome.
Coach, this is Mike Finn in Greensboro. Thanks for being with us. Good luck this weekend. We'll talk to you next Wednesday.
Okay, thanks, Mike.
We're now joined by Pithead football coach Pat Narduzzi, whose Panthers will host Coastal Division rival North Carolina tomorrow night at Heinz Field in Pittsburgh. That game will have an 8 p.m. kickoff, be nationally televised by ESPN. Thursday night's contest marks the second time in 3 years that the two divisional rivals have met on ESPN's Thursday night package. Coach, just a brief opening statement. We'll go to questions.
Sure, Mike. Thank you. Obviously, we're about 31 hours from game time, and all the haze in the barn here as far as the preparation for I think, a very good North Carolina football team coming in here that will be hungry and well coached by Larry Fedora. When I say, everybody wants to look at records, and I don't look at records. I look at what I see on tape, and they've struggled a little bit like our guys have as far as, with quarterback situation, trying to find out who their guy is. I think they found their guy in Chaz Surratt, but, they liked Nathan Elliott last week and didn't choose to put Chaz in, and I don't see him on the latest injury report at all, not even as a probable, so I'm assuming he's ready to go. And, I think they do a great job on offense and defense, and they're young, and they continue to get better every week, and they gave Miami all they wanted. So with that, we'll open up for questions.
Ladies and gentlemen, for a question, it's 1-4. On your telephone, we do have a question from the line of Leo Haggerty with It's Sports Magazine. Please go ahead.
Good afternoon, Coach.
Good morning, Leo.
Coach, probably the least recognizable coach on any college football staff is the strength and conditioning coach. On a scale of 1 being the lowest and 10 being the highest, how important is the strength and conditioning program to staying or becoming successful on the field?
Well, I'd say a 10 plus add another 0 to the end of that, which would be 100. They're really important. Dave Andrews is our strength coach, and he does an unbelievable job, not only with, with just lifting weights and improving our strength and flexibility and recovery, but he does a great job with our culture. I mean, so often our coaches are on the road so many months out of the year. When you really look at it, 3 months out of the year we're not even around, and then you think in the summer we're not allowed to beat them. So maybe half the year our coaches aren't even around. Our kids can't be around them by NCAA rules. So the one guy that's allowed to be around him is probably the most important guy in this building, including myself, is Dave Anderson, our strength coach. And not only that one guy, but I think you have to have a great staff behind him. And I think we have a great staff that the kids love, and it's important. If you have a strength coach that does a great job in the weight room, but they don't, the kids don't want to be in there. We have kids that are begging to go in on a Friday morning at 6 a.m. They want to, even if they're in the too deep, they want to go get a lift in on Friday morning before the game. I'm like, hey guys, like yesterday I had a guy after practice ask. So the strength coach is so important, it's probably, like you said, the most underrated position on our staff, or most staff people, but it's not overrated by the head football coach, I can tell you that.
Coach, last question, and thank you for your time today. At some schools as late as the early 1990s, players never lifted in season. That philosophy has changed in 2017, hasn't it?
Yeah, no doubt about it. I mean, I got done playing back in 89. I think we were still lifting during the season there, but it wasn't like we are. I think we were just more of maintain. But we're trying to get stronger during the season, without wearing them out. There's so much to, peaking during the season. Our strength coach talks about, all the peaking. We use GPSs on our kids, so we track how much work and intensity they're doing during practice. So, I can watch tape, and I'll watch practice tape of the offense and the defense, and I'll say this guy didn't practice well, that guy didn't practice well. We'll go into a staff meeting, and the GPS numbers from our strength coach verify what I already saw on tape, so I can almost see it. What you're talking about with our GPS systems, and that goes along with our strength program.
Thank you, Coach. Good luck tomorrow night.
Thanks, Leo. Appreciate it.
Our next question comes from the line of Jerry DiPaola. Please go ahead.
Good afternoon, Pat. Thanks for your time today. I noticed on your weekly iWord report you had some good news with Camp Hendricks and Maddox. How much do you expect to get from those guys tomorrow night, especially Maddox?
You know what? We'll find out. We'll find out tomorrow morning. We'll see how they feel tomorrow. All three of them really to see where they are. But we listen most probably. And again, those that I word, Jerry. And you always got my time. But that I word, probably means he probably could or he probably might not. We don't know. They all three could probably go or probably not go. That's what probably means, right? That's my definition. So we'll see how they feel.
That's not my definition, but that's okay.
Is that right? Probably could, probably might not. I don't know. Probably.
I thought it means he probably
we'll
could
see.
play.
Yeah. So it probably could. Probably. I mean, I don't know. We'll find out.
Okay. Thanks, Coach.
Thanks, Jerry.
Our next question comes from the line of Andrea Adelson with ESPN.com. Please go ahead.
Pat, I feel like you and Jerry need to have a talk show. That would be like must-see TV right there.
Jerry's my guy. Jerry's my guy. He always asks that I questions. He knows that I'm not going to give him any probable answers. That's for sure. So,
So I want to go back to something you said. You said you don't look at records with North Carolina. You watch the tape. What did they do against Miami specifically to slow down their run game, and kind of how do you prepare for that going into tomorrow?
Well, I think, number one, to play with a lot of confidence, and, they had a good beat on what Miami was doing. And, they played square up front. I mean, I think their D-line played really good. The linebackers were downhill, and they made plays when they needed to. And then on the other side of the ball, I mean, they just, North Carolina just didn't score when they had an opportunity. They got the ball, 4 downs at the one. First play, they try to hurry up and get it, and they have to review the play and all that. But, they could have had 6 off, right off the bat, and then they fake field goal, on a 4th and long, which maybe it was better just to put your offense on the field on that 4th and long. So they had opportunities, didn't score points, and that's scary for a football team. I mean, they still got confidence. They're still playing hard for coach, and that's the hardest probably coaching job you can have, is being a 1-7 or even a 4-5 team, keeping your guys together. But they're playing hard. And this will be a great game tomorrow.
All right, looking forward to it. Thanks, Pat.
Thanks, Adrian.
Our next question comes from the line of Mark Berman with Roanoke Times. Please go ahead.
Good afternoon. What have you especially liked from your defense these last 2 wins that you're seeking to kind of recapture this week?
Yeah, Mark, we've given up some, plays here and there, but, we've really been good in the red zone, Mark, and I think that's probably, the red zone, and then, obviously last week that we played, it seems like it was a month ago, just some of the 4th downs, and we were 4 out of 5 on 4th down, Bronco and the Cavaliers tried to go for it, a lot on 4th down, and we were able to make plays. Our kids are playing fast and have confidence in what we're doing, and happen to make some plays that day. And that's what it comes down to, making plays and playing with a lot of energy and emotion.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mark.
Coach, this is Mike Finn in Greensboro. Thanks for being with us today. Good luck tomorrow night, and we'll talk to you
next Mike. Appreciate it.
Now joined by Boston College head coach Steve Adazio, whose Eagles will host Atlantic Division rival and 23rd ranked NC State this Saturday at Alumni Stadium in Chestnut Hill, Massachusetts. The game will have a noon kickoff, will be televised regionally by ABC and to the rest of the nation on ESPN2. BC has scored 35 or more points in 3 consecutive games for the first time since 2002. Coach, just a brief opening statement, and then we'll go to questions.
Okay, Mike. Well, we have quite an unbelievable challenge ahead of us here. This Saturday, playing North Carolina State. Obviously, just a fantastic football team. Just so, Dave has done an unbelievable job with the program, with his team. They're so well coached. They're extremely talented on offense. Ryan Finley's playing at a very, very high level, and the 2 running backs are dynamic players. Samuels is a dynamic player. The receivers go up and catch the ball fantastic. On defense, it's as good a defensive front as we've played all year long. They have obviously a dominator in Chubb coming off the edge on 3rd down. So there's challenges everywhere. This is one really, really good football team. We've had a bye week we've had a week off. It's been great that we have had a chance to rest and put a little more time and catch up academically and obviously prepare for this game. So we're looking forward to a nice autumn fall day here in Chestnut Hill and taking on a great football team and being a part of a great college football day. So with that, I'll take any questions.
Ladies and gentlemen, for a question, it's 1-4 on your telephone. We have a question from the line of Mark Berman with Roanoke Times. Please go ahead.
Good afternoon. What has been the biggest key to this offense of yours being so productive with these last 3 wins? And did you see this coming? Did you have an inkling that you were about to turn the page offensively?
We felt great about our offense in training camp, and we took on some injuries that really hurt us early on, and really on both sides of the ball. And while we were playing, what's looked to be the number 2 most difficult schedule in the country right now, we were trying to make adjustments and kind of recapture that chemistry back. And but you could see on the film against really good opponents that there was opportunity to make some really good football plays, and we were just short a little bit. And I really felt like after the Virginia Tech game, I said, I think we're ready to pop a little bit here. And our quarterback was playing more confidently, and and our running backs were playing more confidently, and some of the freshmen like A.J. Dillon was gaining confidence, and I think at center, obviously we had a huge change there, and Ben Petrullo really started gaining more confidence, and then our receiver Kobe White. So I think all the young guys started getting some experience, and it was on both sides with the linebackers and John Lamont and Kevin Bletzer, and so the guys were recentering and getting their sea legs, if you will, and so I thought we would have an opportunity, and we're those guys are still freshmen today as they were 4 weeks ago, but I think we're making great strides, and as I've said so many times before, I think the future is so bright, and we have talented guys that love football, and all those other guys that we felt so high on are going to come back again next year. So, it's a great opportunity.
Thank you.
Our next question comes from the line of Samuel Evers with the Rocky Mount Telegram. Please go ahead.
Hey, Coach. I was just wondering, kind of how NC State was on your radar before the season, and if they maybe caught you by surprise a little bit with how good they've been and the challenges they've given to some really good teams.
No, I mean, we knew they were a talented team. Last year we played them, and I thought they were excellent then. And I've watched them. When you study film, I don't study score compares. I watch tape, and they've had an outstanding defense. You could see the makings of their quarterback and their skill players, and they've got some guys that have been around a while now. These are some veteran players, and they're talented. And Dave has developed his program, and anytime you can have a senior or a veteran quarterback with some veteran players and then a defense. I mean, what's winning college football games? It's playing great on defense. It's having the ability to run the football. It's having a quarterback that is playing at a high level. Those are all the ingredients to having a successful year, and he has all those pieces in place.
Gotcha. Yeah, and then last thing, I was wondering if you retroly look back at the Clemson-NC State game last week, and what kind of hopped out at you about NC State.
I mean, I thought it was an electric environment. 2 really good football teams going at each other. Either team could have won that game, and I thought that both teams played with unbelievable heart and guts and toughness, and it's one of those games where somebody was going to have to lose, and but I was very, very impressed with both teams, and obviously extremely impressed with NC State and their players and the coaching that went on. And listen, I have the utmost respect, for this football program and the coaching staff. This is a outstanding football team, and everyone here knows that, and they have our complete attention.
Thanks, Coach.
Our next question comes from the line of Bill Haas of Greensboro. Please go ahead.
Yes, Steve, I'd like to ask you first about Ryan Finley and He's obviously got a lot of playmakers to work with, but he is extremely accurate, almost never throws a pick. And what kind of problems does that present for your defense?
Well, he keeps the chains moving. I mean, this is a guy that makes plays. I think he plays with poise. I think he obviously has complete understanding of what they want. He's excellent taking care of the football, and he makes plays. Not only throwing the ball, but he makes plays with his legs and good decisions in the read zone game. I mean, this is a very good football player. And you always track back teams and how they're playing, and you look and you're going to find their quarterback's playing well. And this guy's playing at a high level. So I'm very impressed with him.
And the other person on the other side of the ball, Bradley Chubb, what is it that makes him such a standout?
I saw one play on tape against Clemson that I think says it all. He comes off the edge against what I think is one of the better offensive tackles in the country, and he takes the edge and he turns speed into power, and with one hand he walks back this big man and puts him in the lap of the quarterback. And I said to myself, wow, I mean, this guy has got explosive electric burst ability, but yet look at the power that he was able to walk the tackle back. And I just, that's what I look at. He's very explosive. He's the dynamic player, and he's as good as there is in America, without any doubt.
Thank you very much.
Yep.
Coach, this is Mike Finn in Greensboro. Thanks for being with us today. Good luck this weekend, and we'll
Thanks,
talk to
Mike.
you next week.
Care.
We're pleased to welcome Duke head football coach David Cutcliffe, whose Blue Devils will travel to West Point, New York for a Saturday game against Army West Point at Michie Stadium on Veterans Day. The game will have a noon kickoff, will be televised nationally by the CBS Sports Network. Coach, just a brief opening statement, and then we'll go to questions.
First, I'm going to comment on what you said about Veterans Day. It is an honor for us to be on base, to be a part of this Veterans Day that will be a big celebration there at West Point. It's also a huge challenge to play an Army team that is an outstanding team. They've won 5 games in a row for a reason. They have talent. They do every little thing they do extremely well in all 3 phases, and we'll have to be as good as we can possibly be to have an opportunity to go up there and win. So I'll take questions.
Ladies and gentlemen, for a question, it's 1-4 on your telephone. We do have a question coming from the line of Mark Berman with Roanoke Times. Please go ahead.
Good afternoon. Obviously, their Army's having a very good year and coming off that win over Air Force. What are you seeing on film to kind of explain why they've been so successful this year?
Well, they've got experienced, talented players. They were good a year ago. Really, actually, 2 years ago, they were a better football team than their record. And their quarterback, it all starts with him on offense. He's a dynamic player. He's a great runner. Runs their offense extremely well. They run the ball as well as anybody I've seen. They haven't thrown it much this year. They've only got 16 completions in 9 games, and they're 7-2. That should tell you something. And then to complement that offense, they've got an outstanding defense. They're experienced up front. They're experienced in the secondary. They play great team defense. And this is a team, when you turn on the tape and you watch the kicking game, their coverage skills, their return skills, I think that they do as good a job as anybody of coaching a team to play just that as a team. So very difficult team to beat for anyone.
Thank you.
Our next question is from Bill Haas of Greensboro. Please go ahead.
David, when you play a service academy team, are there certain common threads, no matter which one it is, in the way they approach the game and the discipline, that sort of thing, or is that not the case?
No, I think it's absolutely the case, and discipline would be a word that I would use. Efficient. I think maybe the most common thread is how intense and how hard they play every down. You've got 11 people working together to try to win the game, and I would say that if you look at any of the academies, that is the common thread. That's they're doing a lot of things there, but they're building a team far and above and beyond anything else.
And with Army in particular, is there a way to prepare for their relentless rushing attack? I mean, you've faced something in a different way when you play Georgia Tech, but what about the way they approach it?
Well, they've used a lot of formations. I've kind of gotten involved myself through the years with that process. So I have gone out with our scout team, and we go out early with that group, and we're running, versus air initially. We're running full speed through all of the plays, getting more and more efficient with it. And then I kind of get them pumped up, motivated. And actually yesterday we scrimmaged it, live scrimmaging, which rarely do we practice live tackling and scrimmaging in a game week. But we did yesterday because I don't think there's any other way to prepare for it. So it's a challenge. There's no question. These guys are outstanding running the football.
Thank you.
Any more questions for Coach Cutcliffe?
Ladies and gentlemen, for a question, press 1-4. We have a question from Andrea Adelson with ESPN.com. Please go ahead.
As a follow-up to that, did you do anything live during the bye week, or was the bye week just focused on yourselves?
We on Wednesday of last week, one day we put on full pads. We were basically live without actually tackling to the ground that day. We had to be somewhat full speed there. We did less work against each other in this past open date than we normally would because we're playing this versatile Army attack, so we had to focus our defensive time on it. So it's not very normal for what we did yesterday. I thought it made us better yesterday, and thank the good Lord no one got hurt, so we got through it without any injury.
Had you done that the previous times you played Army or even Georgia Tech?
We do a little bit of it, but not to that extent. We do live cuts. We let our show team actually try to cut our players live because we think, in that offense you get so many cut blocks. So we feel like you have to do that. We designate periods for that, but as I said yesterday, we just went full tilt. So hopefully that will help us.
Why did you decide to do that? As compared to maybe not doing it other times?
Yeah, I just felt like two or three things. One, I felt like we needed that'll get your practice charged up. I felt like, after 5 games losing in a row, that a spark would be good. We also did some full speed work, ones against ones yesterday, excluding the Army offense. And I think it generated the energy that we hoped for all of us. And the other part of it is this Army team does so many things. I don't know that I've seen anybody do as much with this offense as they do. And I didn't want the practice to turn into just a memorization. Here we are. I wanted them to have to play. I don't think you can stand and stare at that offense and have a chance to stop it. You got to react to it. So I felt like this particular matchup, it was critical for us to do that.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Hope you're well.
Same to you.
Our next question is from Herman Thomas, the early mornings with Herman Thomas. Please go ahead.
Yes, Coach. In regards to defense, all I've been hearing all week is Army's defense. Can you go into, I think your defense is allowing only 20 points per game. Can you go into as far as your expectations of them this Saturday?
Yeah, I think our defense has had a tremendous year in every aspect. We have obviously not won games that we felt like we won, close games particularly, but it's been a year where offensively we've had our problems, but our defense has been pretty steady and kept us in ball games, and it's hard to play great defense if your offense isn't staying on the field. So I am very proud of what we've accomplished there. I think we're stronger, we're faster, we're more physical on defense than maybe any time since we've been here, and we're still young. So I think as you look at Duke's defense right now, it bodes well not only for what we're going to be capable of here in November, but what we're capable of doing moving forward.
Okay, Coach. Thank you, and you have a great day, sir.
Thank you, Herman.
Our next question comes from the line of Christopher Heidel with Herb FM Sports Radio. Please go ahead.
Hey, Coach Dave. How you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Doing great. How different is this Army squad? Because I know you guys played them last year. Are they a much improved squad from last year?
No, I thought they were really good a year ago. You know, we played in the Hurricane game a year ago, so it was an unusual game in that regard. But I tell you, since they've been there, this staff, they've been impressive, and they've recruited well. They have good players. That doesn't need to get lost. It's not just scheme. They have really good football players. This team is confident. When you have that experience at quarterback in this offense, and they've got some, quote, quarterbacks on defense, people that are very experienced at what they do defensively, they're impressive. And so I think you'll see Army under Jeff Monken be this kind of team.
And is it good to have the bye week to get ready for Army instead of having them the following week after? Because with that option and all that stuff, it ruins, it changes your game plan because they have to run the option and all that stuff. Is it good to have a bye week to get ready for that?
Yeah, no question. It helps you. That extra 3 days of work last week made this past yesterday, much less transitional. So you do feel like you're ahead of the game to some degree with that.
Well, good luck this week.
Thank you.
Coach, this is Mike Finn in Greensboro. Thanks for being with us. Good luck this weekend. We'll talk to you next Wednesday.
All right. Thank you, Mike.
We're now joined by NC State head coach Dave Doran, whose Wolfpack ranked 23rd by the College Football Playoff Committee, 24th by the Amway Coaches Poll. We traveled to Chestnut Hill, Massachusetts for a Saturday game at Alumni Stadium against Atlantic Division rival Boston College. The game will have a noon kickoff, be televised regionally by ABC, but to the rest of the nation on ESPN2. Coach, just a brief opening statement. We'll go to questions.
Thanks, Mike. Looking forward to playing a very good Boston College team, and know they're coming off a bye week and senior day, so they're going to be revved up and ready to play us. Very physical team that's running the ball really well, and I think their quarterback's gotten better and better, and defensively, they're, as they always are, they're very sound, physical bunch of players that play hard and kind of show you what they're going to do and just do it really well. from our standpoint, I feel like we're a little healthier than we were a week ago, and all of our guys have practiced this week, and thought we played really hard. Great football game against Clemson, and came up short. But looking forward to what we have in front of us, and these last 3 games are very important to our program, and looking forward to this next one. Questions?
Ladies and gentlemen, for a question, it's 1-4 on your telephone. First question is from Zach Lentz with the Times and Democrat. Please go ahead. Zach Lentz, your line is open. Please verify the mute function on your telephone.
Yes, Coach. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I got you.
Okay, good. I was wanting to see if you had heard Clemson head coach Dabo Swinney's comments yesterday in his press conference regarding the laptop, event that happened Saturday night, and him saying that he feels an investigation needs to be ran on your side and to the players, management, and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I did. I think college football is a lot of fun. I really do. But we don't have a drone, but I am going to send some towels over to Dabo. We're good. I mean, it's in the past, and looking forward to playing Boston College.
I guess as a follow-up to that, do you kind of in hindsight wish that maybe you had handled the laptop thing a little bit differently?
No. I mean, look, I'm not a politically correct guy. I coach with a lot of passion. Our kids play with it. He does the same thing, and at the end of a game, when you lose a game that has conference championship implications on it, sometimes things are going to be said, and I don't think it's a big deal. I really don't. So I'm going to move on, and I'm sure he will too. He's got a big game this week.
All right. Thanks, Coach.
Yep.
Our next question is from the line of Mark Berman with Roanoke Times. Please go ahead with your question.
Good afternoon. As far as the back-to-back losses you're coming off of, how much of that is just running into 2 of the top 4 teams in the country versus are there certain things you're kind of asking your defense to prove upon this week?
Yeah, I don't know. Has anyone else played the number 4 and number 3 ranked team back-to-back besides us?
Not this year, I don't think.
I think we've played a pretty challenging schedule. I think our guys played their butts off last week, and, did that coming off of a game where we lost 5 guys in the middle of it. So I'm pretty proud of these guys, and wish we could have made a couple more plays or had a few more ticks on the clock, but we didn't. And Clemson's a great football team, and so is Notre Dame. So these kids have practiced really hard this week. They're excited to play Boston College and look forward to the next challenge. And BC's a great opponent, so we got our hands full again. They just beat Florida State 35-3. So you don't get a rest in this league, and you got to jump up off the canvas and start swinging again. That's what we're going to do.
Thank you.
Our next question is from Samuel Evers with Rocky Mount Telegram. Please go ahead.
Hey, Coach. Obviously still in a pretty good position for the rest of the year, but just based on where you were 2 weeks ago, is it kind of hard to fight that feeling of what if maybe things had gone a little bit different, obviously in the Clemson game and then maybe even to an extent in the Notre Dame game?
No, that's for you guys, I guess. I don't get the luxury of that. I got to focus on today, and I got to get this team ready to play. And looking at things that have zero to do with where we're going to go don't help us. Everything in our program is about what can we do better, how can we learn from what happened, and put our best product, our best coaches, our best players, our best game plans to use. And we always study the past, but we've got to dwell on today and how can we get the most out of these kids every day, and that's what we're going to do.
Gotcha. Yeah, and then just as a quick follow-up, obviously, BC, another good opponent. I think I might know the answer to this question, but, when does the kind of preparation start for BC, and when do you just kind of have to move on from that Clemson game?
We always come in the day after the game and watch our game from Saturday with the guys and go through the things we did well, the things we didn't, our formula for what we think we need to do to win and where we met the standard and where we didn't and how can we learn from it. Then we start watching Boston College or that next opponent that day, and by the time we go to dinner, we're on to the next game. And it's a 24-hour rule on our program, and that's how we do it.
Gotcha. Thanks, Coach.
Mm-hmm.
Our next question is from the line of Bill Haas of Greensboro. Please go ahead.
Yeah, Dave, the BC offense has just really come to life the last 3 weeks in particular.
Yeah.
What do you see as the ways they've improved, and they're just really moving and scoring the ball?
Yeah, they're averaging over 35 points in the last 3 games, and I think they just settled in on their identity. Redshirt freshman quarterback, a freshman tailback, and it just takes time when you got young guys to not only get them to where you want them, but understand what they're really good at. And Steve's a really good coach. He's always been good at blocking people up and getting his guys to play hard. And their tailback's a stud. I mean, that guy's 240 pounds, and the guys up front fight for him, and their quarterback's done a better job as the year's gone on and not turning the football over, which obviously protects a team that's going to run the football.
And then after they gave up 42 to Louisville, they put the clamps on Virginia and Florida State. 13 points allowed in the last 2 games. What are the strengths of their defense? What is it that they're doing very well?
Right. Their secondary's playing at a high level. They're tied with Miami for interceptions in the conference at 13, and anytime you're creating takeaways with your defensive unit and giving the ball over to an offense that can run the football, that's a pretty good formula for winning, and that's what they've been able to do the last 3 weeks. And ball security is a big deal in a game like this for both teams.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Our next question is from Andrea Adelson with ESPN.com. Please go ahead.
Dave, you said at the beginning these 3 games are very important for our program. You're looking forward to playing Boston College. Can you elaborate a little bit more on that, just specifically why you feel these 3 games are important?
Well, just the history of NC State, if we could win out, which we got to win the next one to do it, obviously we'd finish 7-1 in the ACC, which has never been done here. So a chance for our senior class to say they were the best, team in NC State history in conference play. And if we could get to 10 wins, that's only been done 1 time in program history. So there's a ton on the table for us when you talk about the legacy of your senior class, and that's what these guys are playing for right now. They want to be remembered as the best senior class in the history of the program, and that's on the table if they win out. So the challenge is great, 2 road games and then a rivalry game, and the first one against a team I think is playing as good as anybody in the league right now. So, but there's a lot to play for these guys, and they're excited about it.
Is that something that you guys have talked about as a team?
Absolutely.
Okay. Thanks, Dave. Appreciate it.
You bet.
Coach, this is Mike Finn in Greensboro. Thanks for being with us today. Good luck this weekend, and we'll talk to you next Wednesday.
Appreciate it, Mike. Go Pack.
We now welcome Miami head coach Mark Richt, whose Hurricanes ranked 7th by the College Football Playoff Committee, 7th by AP, and 6th by the Amway Coaches Poll. Host Notre Dame, which is ranked 3rd by the CFP. At Hard Rock Stadium this Saturday night in Miami Gardens. The game will have an 8 p.m. kickoff, be nationally televised by ABC. And Saturday's game is the first time the 2 teams have met when both were ranked in the top 10 since 1989. Coach, just a brief opening statement, and we'll go to questions.
All right. We, as usual, just got off the field a minute ago. Had a good day. It's been a nice, warm climate for us to be working in, which is what we need to be able to prepare for what might happen on Saturday night.
Questions for Coach Richt.
Ladies and gentlemen, for a question, it's 1-4 on your telephone. And we have a question from Leo Haggerty with It's Sports Magazine. Please go ahead.
Good afternoon, Coach.
Hi, Leo.
Coach, probably the least recognizable coach on any college football staff is the strength and conditioning coach. On a scale of 1 being the lowest and 10 being the highest, how important is the strength and conditioning program to staying or becoming successful on the field?
Well, I think every hire needs to be a 10, personally. If you're deficient in strength and conditioning and nutrition, you cannot become you can't reach your full potential. You can't develop these guys into what they can be, into their full potential. It's impossible. So very thankful for Gus Felder to be in our, head strength coach, and he's doing a wonderful job with his staff. And I think we're doing a wonderful job in that area.
Coach, last question, and good luck with Notre Dame this weekend.
Thank you. Thanks.
At some schools, as late as the early 1990s, players never lifted in season. That philosophy has changed in 2017, hasn't it?
Yeah, well, it's changed for a long time. Even back when I played, we would lift in season, and that's back in the early 80s, late 70s, early 80s. We may have been different than most places, I don't know, but we would always get a lift in, at least one lift in throughout the week. Most people get 2 good ones in with their starters and guys that are playing a bunch, and then normally the kids that are being redshirted end up getting a 3rd one a week. So that we keep them working pretty hard.
Thank you, Coach. Good luck this weekend.
Yes, sir.
Our next question comes from the line of Mike Berman with Roanoke Times. Please go ahead.
Sure.
Good afternoon. What did you like from your defensive front last week, and what kind of challenges will they face this week as you look at the Notre Dame offensive line on film?
Right. Well, we're designed to attack. We're more of a speed rush type group where we don't try to play in the middle of a defender or a blocker and play half a gap here, half a gap there. I mean, we're going to get in the gaps. We're going to penetrate. We're going to try to create a new line of scrimmage with our interior and the guys on the edge, and we'll react to the run as it happens. But because we try to get off the ball so quickly and penetrate, that's why we are, we might be number 1 in the country in tackles for loss. I think we're close anyway. But a lot of that just has to do with philosophy of how we play our D-line, and Coach Diaz believes in it, and Coach Kulagowski, our line coach, believes in it. And we got those are the kind of athletes we get down here. Those kind of long, lean, speed guys.
And what kind of challenges will they face as you look at the Notre Dame offensive line this week? On film?
Well, that's the problem there. Big, strong, physical maulers, guys that can move people. Their left guard, left tackle are probably going to be the first players drafted at their position. They're the center and the right guard are seniors. The only sophomore in the group is a right tackle, I think. But when you're running the ball for over 300 and some yards a game, and you're not Air Force, Army, or Georgia Tech running triple option football, you're doing something special. And then to add to it, the ability to throw the football the way they can that's why they're one of the top scoring teams in the offense. I mean, one of the top scoring teams in the country.
Thank you.
Yes.
Our next question comes from the line of Tom Green with Birmingham News. Please go ahead.
Hey, Coach. This weekend is just the 4th time ever that Georgia and Auburn are meeting as top 10 teams. You were obviously the coach the last time that happened in 2004. Just want to know what your message was to your team going into that game, since you guys were ranked 8th and had a lot to play for going into it, including the SEC East still in reach.
Right. Who won?
Auburn did.
Oh, shoot. Well, whatever I said, it must not have been very good. I don't remember. Just do your job and play hard and just try to take care of business. I'm sure it wasn't anything spectacular.
Gotcha. I also wanted to see if you remembered Darius Slayton, a receiver you recruited at Georgia
a few
years ago that wound up at Auburn, and what you remember about him from when he was being recruited.
I know we wanted him bad. He's a good one. Good kid too.
All right. Thanks.
You're welcome.
Our next question comes from the line of Bill Haas of Greensboro. Please go ahead.
Mark, can you talk just a little bit about Braxton Berrios and what he means to your team? He's got a knack
amazing
for getting in the end zone, that's for sure.
He's been amazing. He really has. He's an amazing guy. I mean, the guy has a 3.96 GPA. He's got 1 B+. Everything else is A's. He's a great receiver. He blocks his tail off. He's a great return man. He's a leader. He cares about people in the community. the guy is very, very unique. To be that really good at so many things, I can't imagine him not getting some kind of a national award for how great he is as a person, a player, and a student.
He's your slot guy primarily. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
What do you look for in that slot receiver, and how does he personify that?
Right. Well, I've had guys that were smaller in stature, and I've had guys that are big, long guys. You know, I've had them both. If you are going to be, under 5'10", you better be super quick, agile, and tough, and that's what he is. Of course, he's got wonderful speed as well, but it's more about quickness in there and being able to separate and be able to run the right kind of routes and take the right kind of angles. When you're running down the middle of the field, you better take a good angle out of your break, or you're going to run yourself right into a safety. And he understands how to not only get open, but protect himself from a ball that might draw him towards another safety. So he just understands the game extremely well and has all the skill set and toughness to go along with it.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Any more questions for Coach Richt?
Ladies and gentlemen, for a question, it's 1-4 on your telephone. We have a question from Christopher Heidel with the Herb FM Sports Radio. Please go ahead.
Hey, Coach Mark. How you doing?
Great. How are you?
Doing great. I got to redeem myself with a couple weeks ago with a bad question for you. So,
I forgot whatever it was.
It was about the point, like the 2-minute warning, the 5 minutes, running the football. Well, I don't remember, but I know it was totally bad.
I think what happens sometimes is if a commentator says something, everybody believes it's true. And but there are times definitely to try to, chew up more clock. But I didn't want to do it at the expense of the tempo that we were going at to help us. We go quicker tempo to try to help ourselves score. We're only up by 1, so I didn't think it was time to do that. But it's certainly debatable on whether you should or shouldn't. But I felt like we were doing the right thing.
Yeah. Well, my question is, points over turnover. You guys are, when you got the defense getting the football, the interception, right. You guys can't turn it in. You're like worst in the country. How are you going to get better on that?
I don't know. I think we need to score. It's just I don't know. We're doing everything we can to get it done, and sometimes you do. And the good news is we've made enough plays offensively to win games, and that's really the most important thing. And you can get mad at stats all day, or you can look at the final result and feel like we're on the right track.
Yeah. Well, good luck this week, and good luck with prime time.
All right. Thank you.
Coach, this is Mike Finn in Greensboro. Thanks for being with us. Good luck this weekend for sure, and we'll talk to you next Wednesday.
Okay. Thank you.
This concludes today's ACC Football Coaches Teleconference. Thanks for being with us. Please join us next week when we start at 10:30, which is our normal time, with Coach Bronco Mendenhall of Virginia.
Ladies and gentlemen, that does conclude the conference call for today. We thank you for your participation. Ask that you please disconnect your lines.